250,000 years ago, you were not alone. There were others, other humans, walking the same earth, hunting the same animals, watching the same stars. The Neanderthals in the frozen forests of Europe, the denisovans hidden in the caves of Siberia, Homo erectus still surviving on the islands of Asia, tiny hobbit humans, barely a meter tall, living on a remote island called Flores. At least 9 different human species once shared this planet. 9. And today, there is only one left, us. So what happened to the others? Did we kill them? Did we outsmart them? Or did they simply vanish? Stay with me, because the answer is stranger and darker than you think. Let's go back, way back. Around 2 million years ago, our ancestors began leaving Africa in waves. Each wave evolved differently, shaped by different climates, different foods, different dangers. In Europe, one group grew short, powerful, and thick-boned, perfectly built to survive the brutal Ice Age cold. We call them the Neanderthals. In Asia, another group developed differently, adapting to warmer, forested environments, Homo erectus. Some of them stayed isolated for so long, on islands cut off from the mainland, that they actually shrank in size over generations. On the island of Flores, in Indonesia, this created a real-life species barely taller than a 3-year-old child. Scientists nicknamed them hobbits. Meanwhile, deep inside a cave in Siberia, a mysterious group known as the denisovans left behind almost no fossils, just a single finger bone and a few teeth. But their DNA tells an incredible story, one we'll come back to. And then, somewhere in Africa, around 300,000 years ago, we appeared, Homo sapiens. At first, we were just one more human species among many. Nothing special, nothing guaranteed. For over 200,000 years, several human species lived on Earth at the same time. Sapiens in Africa, Neanderthals in Europe and the Middle East, Denisovans in Asia, Erectus and the hobbits on scattered islands. Imagine that, different kinds of humans meeting each other in the wild. And they did meet. When Homo sapiens migrated out of Africa around 70,000 years ago, they encountered the Neanderthals. And what happened next wasn't just conflict, it was also connection. We interbred with them. Today, almost every person with non-African ancestry carries Neanderthal DNA, usually between 1 and 2% of their entire genome. Some of it affects your immune system. Some of it affects your skin and hair. Some Neanderthal genes may even influence how your body responds to certain diseases right now, in the present day. The same happened with the Denisovans. Some populations in Asia and Oceania, especially in Papua New Guinea, carry up to 4 to 6% Denisovan DNA, affecting things like altitude adaptation in the Himalayas. So in a very real sense, the other human species never fully disappeared. They live on, quietly, inside your cells, but their species, as distinct, independent peoples, they vanished. Why? Scientists believe it wasn't one single cause, but a perfect storm of disadvantages stacked against them. First, climate change. The Ice Age was unstable, swinging between brutal cold and sudden warming. Neanderthals were superbly adapted to cold, stable environments, but when the climate began swinging wildly, their advantage became a weakness. Second, competition for resources. Homo sapiens arrived in larger social groups, with more advanced tools, sharper projectile weapons, and, crucially, more complex language and cooperation. We could plan hunts across long distances. We could trade with other unrelated groups, exchanging resources during hard times. Neanderthals, evidence suggests, lived in smaller, more isolated groups, with far less long-distance trade and cooperation. Third, and this one is haunting, slow population decline. Recent genetic studies suggest Neanderthal populations were already small and fragile, possibly numbering only in the tens of thousands across the entire continent. Small populations are fragile. A few bad decades, a harsh winter, a disease outbreak, a failed hunting season, and numbers that are already low can collapse entirely. There's also evidence of direct violence between groups, but most researchers today believe outright war was rare. The extinction wasn't a single dramatic battle, it was something slower, quieter, more like a long fade than a final blow. The last known Neanderthals disappeared roughly 40,000 years ago in what is now Gibraltar, on the southern tip of Europe, the very edge of the continent, cornered, isolated, and dwindling. The Denisovans lasted a bit longer in parts of Asia, but eventually they too faded into silence, leaving behind only fragments of bone and fragments of DNA in the people who carry their legacy today. The hobbits of Flores may have survived until around 50,000 years ago, right around the time Homo sapiens is believed to have reached that region. One by one, every other branch of the human family tree went quiet, except ours. So why did we survive when they didn't? It likely comes down to a combination of larger social networks, more flexible diets, more advanced tool-making, and above all, language. The ability to plan, imagine, warn, teach, and cooperate across huge groups of unrelated people gave Homo sapiens an edge that no other human species could match. We weren't necessarily stronger, we weren't necessarily smarter in every way, but we were more connected. And in the harsh, unpredictable world of the Ice Age, connection was survival. So the next time you look in the mirror, remember this: you are not just one version of human, you are the last version, the final survivor of a family tree that once had at least 9 branches, and carried quietly inside your DNA are echoes of the ones who came before you, the Neanderthals, the Denisovans, ancient cousins who once looked up at the same moon and wondered about the same mysteries you wonder about today. We didn't just replace them, in some small, invisible way. We became them. If this story fascinated you, make sure to subscribe, because next time, we're going even further back, to the very first spark of what made us human in the first place. I'll see you in the next one.